Hi, everybody. I think we'll get started. It's 5:30 on Wednesday, August 5th. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission for Manitou Springs. I'm Matt Rose, Chair. The Historic Preservation Commission was established in 1979 by residents of Manitou Springs to protect the city's historic and cultural resources by reviewing alterations to existing resources and new construction in any of the city's 16 historic districts. Criteria for the review is guided by the City of Manitou Springs Historic Design Guidelines and Chapter 17 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code. Both are available for your reference on the city's website, manitou-springs.gov. The order of proceedings for tonight's public hearing items is as follows. Staff from the Planning Department will present their report on the proposed alteration. The applicant will step forward. Then the applicant will start forward and provide additional clarification to support their case. We'll also invite public comment on the proposed alterations, and the applicant may come forward again with a rebuttal if they wish. Commissioners will deliberate the case and may ask for further clarification from staff or the applicant. Commissioners will then vote to approve, conditionally approve, or deny the application. We will repeat this process for each of tonight's applications, and if any applicant wishes to appeal the commission's decision, planning staff can provide guidance for that process, which is also outlined in Chapter 17 of the City Code. So to get started, let's take roll. Starting with Commissioner Tomsic.
Here.
Introduce yourself, please.
Commissioner Avery Tomsic.
Awesome. And welcoming to a regular member seat is Jahan Harakan.
Commissioner Khan.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Matt Murphy.
Ann Nichols.
Commissioner Aaron Handlin.
Thank you. And for the record, should we have staff introduce themselves too?
Okay. Planning Director, Fred Rolandhagen, Planning Director.
Zachary Davison, Planner 2.
Senior Planner Chelsea Royston.
Thank you. All right. Could we please I thought we were going to jump right into the first thing, but should we have any comments on minutes from last meeting?
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I just want to introduce myself as well. Zach Zalesny, I'm the attorney present today.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. Are there any comments from the meetings from last meeting? And if not, we can go ahead and take a vote to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from
Second.
July.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. The minutes from our July 1st meeting are unanimously approved.
Hey, folks, could I please, sorry, this is Chelsea. Could I please remind everyone to speak very close to your microphone and speak up? It is pretty difficult to hear remote.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on any non-agenda item? I didn't see one on the agenda, so I suppose not. I don't see any unfinished business either, so let's move on to the first order of new business. That is open the public hearing on MCAC 2613 112 South Path, new construction. Oh, yes, thank you. Also need to ask if any commissioners have a conflict of interest or ex parte communication on this case. Nope, thank you. Okay. Staff, will you go ahead and present the case?
Thank you. MCAC 2613 at 112 South Path, new residential. Applicant is John McGee. Here is the property overview. It is in the Peakview Historic District and it is zoned general residential. The site there, you can see a little bit of rubble. There used to be a shed garage type feature there that was destroyed some years ago. The project proposal, construct a two-story family detached dwelling. The dwelling itself will be 1,676 square feet of living area and a 300 square feet single car garage. They are also requesting height relief of 26 feet and 4 inches where 25 feet is required. Here are the current conditions of the vacant lot. And here are the proposed conditions, the site plan. This is all elevations, the street facing east elevation, south elevation, north elevation, and west elevation. So the materials proposed, they are going to have standard asphalt roofing. There is going to be some pine fir siding here in the front where my mouse is hovering. On that deck itself is going to also have the metal fortress railing and composite decking. Underneath will be a concrete porch. The plan is to have it stained the Manitou red, and the windows will be a vertical single hung vinyl window, the garage and lights as shown here as well. There's also going to be a small retaining wall. This is an example of the wall, and the retaining wall itself will be here where these red circles are. I also want to highlight some concerns that were brought to the planning department. Some of this was already noted in the staff report, and we did attach some documents. But outside of that, we did receive in total 2 phone calls and 2 separate emails, with the primary concerns being parking and street access, construction noise, off-street parking, water pressure and capacity, trash and wildlife management, and stormwater drainage. Each email did state that they are aware that the HPC has limited authority over many of these matters and are not necessarily asking HPC to solve these issues, but they do want to speak and have these concerns entered into the public record. And that concludes my presentation. The Mosin language, I have it broken up into 2, the structure itself and also the height relief. Should the Historic Preservation Commission find it appropriate to grant the material change of appearance certificate, staff recommends no conditions. The motion language is as follows: approve with conditions, deny or postpone, and the same for height relief. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Do any commissioners have questions for staff?
So Zach, do you know, is the reason for the exceeding the 25-foot limit because of the pitch of the roof, or do you know?
I think it's a combination. I think it's the pitch, but also it's the way that the site is situated, to the topography of the site. They don't want to disturb the way the site is. They don't want to dig into the side. And as a result, the combination of the two is kind of pushed it outside of the envelope, or how we measure height.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
It looked like the building site actually sits a little below street level, so it's not, it sort of just goes into the flat area and then it goes up at the back of the lot. So it may not appear to be higher than 25 from the street.
Yeah, and maybe so. I'm mostly using the staff report and the narrative to back this claim up, but sometimes height is kind of difficult to determine on a picture versus going out in person. And I personally haven't gone out to the site and witnessed it with, yeah.
So I actually live pretty close to this site, and unless they're gonna build up the grade, it is a little bit below the
Yeah.
street for the most part.
Okay. Could we ask the applicant to come forward? And add anything you'd like to the case? And if, when you get to the table there, just pull one of these close to you, hit the button so the light comes on, and tell us your name and address, please.
My name's Fran McGee. I live at 1 Oak Ridge Road in Manitou.
John McGee, same address.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add to the report that we heard?
I don't think so. It's pretty clear. I guess I thought we had up to 30 feet for height. Just because it's in the historical, but maybe I was wrong on that.
If I could, so the 30 feet is the height relief. The Historic Preservation Commission can approve up to 30 feet, but the general residential standard is 25 feet. So the height relief that you are seeking, the 26 feet and 4 inches, you're seeking a height relief of 1 foot, 4 inches over the 25-foot general residential standard.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Oh,
are there any commissioners that have questions for the applicant? Okay, I think it was pretty well stated.
Yeah, really well stated. Yeah.
So at this point then, you're welcome to take your seats again, and we'll open the public hearing, for public comment. If there's anybody in the public who'd like to make comment now, thank you. Come on forward. And same thing, pull the microphone close to you and turn on the green light, and then tell us your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Liz Petropoulos, and my address is 110 South Path. So I'm one property below. And my concern is more with the water drainage problems. I've had this property for quite a while, and when I first bought it, I had to rebuild the subflooring in the corner of where all the water drains, basically from the street and this vacant lot. So I rebuilt that subfloor with my dad. I don't know if it was like 8 years ago or something, I don't know when. And he was really mad at me. He's like, how do you buy a property like this? He's from Albuquerque and he's a general contractor. Wasn't real happy with me. He's yelling at me actually, like, how can you buy a property like this? I'm like, Dad, this is a beautiful old, building, please, But after about a week, he's like, oh, okay, So you don't want to know what was in the like some of the footings and stuff, He's like, we don't do this in Albuquerque. And I'm like, well, this is Colorado. Anyway, so since then, this has to do with the city, and I apologize if I'm talking to the wrong people, but at one point you guys, not you guys, but the city redid the road. And when you guys like resurface the road, even more water now comes to that spot. And I have pictures, and I've been kind of ignoring it, but it got worse and worse and worse. So before this situation came up, I contacted R&R Ditching to come and give me a proposal on how to fix it, because I figured you guys probably didn't have money to fix it, and I figured I needed an extra berm, or I need a lot of help there. I mean, I really do recommend you go out and look at the site, because it's not pretty. It's horrible. Then they looked at it and they said that was beyond their scope. They said, go to Intech Engineering and see what they can do for you. Because I'm like, well, if I can solve all the problems for $5 grand, maybe I'll do it, because I didn't fight it earlier. So I kind of feel bad that, I've let it go, this long in a way. And they went out there and they said, this is beyond our scope. So now I've gone to some pretty heavy duty people that do pretty heavy duty drainage engineering, and they don't want to touch it. So I have no objections to someone putting another property there, but I think I'm going to get even more flooding, and it sounds like they're trying to address it with the small berm, but there's a lot of trouble there with the water. That's all I'm saying. So, and I think part of it is the road. I think the road, no matter what, because it comes down a long hill, and then there's also another side road on the left side, and all that water forms. And I don't want to damage my house, So I hope you guys will, I'm sure this gentleman probably knows all about that because you guys do these studies, but I think it'll add more, I'm concerned about that. And then they did have a surveyor come out, I believe. I haven't talked to them because I haven't, they haven't contacted me, but I'd love to talk to them afterwards because I'm a friendly person, really. But it looks like the survey line 2 is the way the property is. I don't know if you can tell, I have a picture of it, but my property is even another 3 feet lower. So there's this old like rock that's maybe 3 feet high that goes up to where they would be building. And it looks like that rock is actually on their property. So I don't know who's responsible for the water coming, who's responsible for, the above water coming in my property, and who's responsible for the wall to hold it up so that the water's drained properly back to the street. So there's kind of like 2 problems. One is the road and one is the adjoining line. And I'm a little bit concerned too, because that line almost looks like I might have to remove part of my garage, which has been there since 18 whatever, I don't know. I don't know for sure, so I don't know how that works because I don't know. When I bought it, I'm not sure I had a survey on it. So I don't know if, all of a sudden I'm going to get a notice saying I have to remove my garage, so there's a couple, I don't know how close. I don't, I apologize. I've been real busy with a celebration of life here this last week, and so anyway, I'll stop. If you have any questions for me, and I'm very friendly and very willing to work with people. I'm not, I'm a good neighbor, so.
That's great. Thank you for sharing all that. I think that most of the things, everything that you talked about is not within our purview for this commission, but it's important to get it on record. And it seems as though going to the city to address those concerns and talking with your prospective neighbors would be the way to do it. And just like everyone else, please tell us your name and what your address is and turn on the microphone and pull it close to you.
Hi, my name is Claire Coleman. I am a resident at 109 South Path. The historic design guidelines require that new construction be compatible with the defining characteristics of the historic subdistrict in which it's located. I respectfully ask that the Historic Preservation Commission to consider whether the proposed building's overall massing, material palette, and architectural character achieve the level of compatibility envisioned by the guidelines for the Peakview Historic Subdistrict. The Peakview Historic Subdistrict is characterized by cottages and vernacular residences, wood frame construction, side gabled roofs, and buildings whose scale, massing, and orientation echo the historic residences of the neighborhood. The guidelines also state that consideration should be made in respecting the natural topography and fitting new construction into the site. Guideline 5.4 mass and scale states that the mass and scale of new buildings should be similar to existing historic structures within the subdistrict, and that large building masses should be subdivided into smaller components. In my opinion, the proposed design does not sufficiently reduce the apparent mass. The south elevation in particular contains long uninterrupted wall planes with minimal offsets or architectural articulation outside of the windows. These expansive wall surfaces increase visual mass of the building rather than reducing it as encouraged by the guidelines. Guideline 5.6 building materials states that the new building should employ materials and finishes that complement existing historic resources contained within the subdistrict. The proposed design relies predominantly on smooth stucco with only limited use of wood siding. I respectfully ask the commission to consider whether this material palette complements traditional residential character of the Peakview Historic Subdistrict. Although the house is positioned on the flattest portion of the site and appears to preserve the existing topography, the architectural design itself appears visually static. The building reads as a simple stucco box with little effort to reduce the apparent bulk through changes in wall plane, materials, or architectural detailing. Taken as a whole, I believe that the proposed residence does not sufficiently embrace the architectural character described for the Peakview Historic Subdistrict. While the design may satisfy zoning and other development standards, I respectfully question whether it achieves the compatibility with the historic district requirements. And then I also had a couple questions that came up during the meeting here about how the height of the building is determined. There was talk about looking at it from the height of the street. My understanding is that when you're looking at a building height, you determine it by the average grade surrounding the building. So I'd like a clarification on that. It seems like the street is a little off base in determining the height. And then one of the ways to solve that, I have a question of if the roof pitch could be changed to a lesser slope to get it under the height requirements. I'd also like to follow up on what Elizabeth said with regards to drainage. From my house, I have a very clear view of her house and the property. And when it rains, the area in front of her garage fills up like a bathtub. It pours over from 112 South Path into 110 South Path. And in addition, I have a letter that was input into the MCAC, and I would also like to know where we bring these issues that can't be addressed by the historical committee, what departments we need to visit before this is approved. And also what the approval process, the path that the applicant is planning to take. Typically there's the historic planning approval, you've got to go through building department, and I don't know what other departments, and I'd like to get an idea of what sequencing of approvals is going to be attempted. That's all.
Thank you.
I can answer some questions if you'd like.
That'd be great.
I'll start with the property owner before, because he did have some concerns about grading and erosion, or drainage rather, I'm sorry. So for new residential applications, we do require grading and erosion control permits. These also evaluate drainage. So we'll have a better idea. As of now, we don't necessarily have an answer of how, or at least how this is going to impact, but none of those would be approved if it were to be at the detriment of any neighboring properties. For the height, the way the height's measured is we measure height on an envelope, and you take the existing grade and you raise it up 25 feet, or at least in regards to general residential, 25 feet. And the structure has to fit within that area. In this particular instance, it doesn't fit within that area, and that's why they're seeking the height relief of 1 foot 4 inches or 6 inches. It might be 6 inches. So for these issues, you can bring them to the planning department, which you have, and can continue to do so. We'll field any concerns that you have. And anything that we approve is listed on our website, and anyone can appeal those approvals if they wish. And you can get in contact with the planning department, and we can walk you through the appeal process if you'd like to appeal any one of those applications, whether it be the minor site plan or the grading and erosion control permits. And if you want to give us a call, we can talk about any of those as well.
Anybody else?
Would the applicant like an opportunity to come up and say anything in response? It is up to you. I was just inviting you to.
As far as the drainage, I mean, it sounds like her garage fills up as it sits, so what we do might be an improvement on that. Because we have an erosion control plan. We try to drain everything to the front, to the street, which would help her garage. As far as the height, I mean, it seems reasonable what we've done. If you're standing on the street, you're 2 or 3 feet higher than the house anyway, so the house will look lower than 25 feet. But yeah, drainage is a thing for builders all the time. The street's not in the best shape, but I think what we'll do will be an improvement. So we've always improved the properties that we've developed and never had an issue with drainage or anything. So I know one of the issues on a letter was construction, traffic, and parking, and I get it. We do the best we can. The house sits back enough where we think most of the subs will be able to park on or in front of the house. You know, we keep that open. Occasionally there'll be people on the street, just like when the city is working on something, there's trucks are in the street. I mean, the streets are only so wide. So we do the best we can. We try to be good neighbors. And I'm happy to talk to any neighbors face to face. I'd rather work that out that way anyway, but so I don't think there was anything else. Yes. Yeah.
Maybe just one question. I know you've done a number of houses in Manitou. And what's your perception of how you've designed it in terms of its compatibility with the other historic houses on South Path?
Well, it's a challenge. I get that if you a rectangular shaped house is less appealing, I guess, than angles and stuff, but then you cut down the square footage. We're at 1,600. So you do have to think of, we have to sell this house and so I feel like it fits in. We went with stucco. There's quite a few houses with stucco. With all the fire talk, stucco seemed to make sense for fire stuff. We popped out the front porch to give some dimension to the front. Yeah, I mean, if you drive around Peakview, there are all kinds of houses. They're just all sidings, stucco, skinny houses, short houses. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we fit in as well as any other house in that district. So.
Thank you. So if there's no one else, we can close public comment. Oh, okay. Please come up.
I'll use this one because the mic's still on.
All right. Tell us who you are and what your address is, please.
My name's Alex Thornberry. I live at 114 South Path, and that's my purple house right there on the screen. And let me pull up my one little note here. I only have one question, and I know you guys aren't going to be able to answer it.
If you can pull the microphone a little closer to
My
you,
bad.
then
I'll lean forward too.
thank you.
Okay, so my question is it still Manitou Springs stance that the water main up South Path is overserved and that no new taps will be approved until the water pressure issue is resolved? This was told to both the previous owners of this property that they were not going to be allowed to tap into the water main until there was going to be water pressure issue resolved. So I've spoken to multiple residents up the street and they have water pressure issues. I will be the next tap up from this property and my water pressure is not great. So the farther up you go, the street you go, the worse it gets. So if Manitou Springs previously said that they were not going to approve tap until the water main was addressed, and it was specifically stated to me by the previous two owners that Manitou Springs said that they wanted an 8-inch water main up there. The first guy, Ralph, they said to him that they wanted a fire plug up there as well. So my question, and it's not to this group, but to whatever group it goes to, is what changed? Why are we okay with putting a tap in now when we haven't addressed the water pressure issues?
I can't speak on previous staff, at least at Public Works. What I can say is that we do development review for all our new residential, and current Public Works staff are in attendance of these reviews. So everything that is submitted is going to be reviewed not only by the planning department, it will be looked at by sewer and water. So now that we have it on record, I have taken note. This will be something that I bring up to them, at least in discussion, to see if they have any insight to it or any knowledge of any past conversations related to it.
So the water department would be the one I went to find out how many residences are tapped into that water main so we can discuss it with all the residents.
It would be Public Works, yeah.
Public Works.
And you could definitely give them you can give them a call and see if they have any questions or answers to your questions. And after this meeting or an email, I believe we were discussing through email. I can give you their contact information so you can reach out to them.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Yes, applicant, please come up.
So I did talk to the Public Works and they said it's fine. They've went up there and tested, the fire department went up and tested the hydrant that's right on the corner next to his house. It's in good shape. The flow is great. So from what I've talked to, they don't see a problem at all with water pressure. So in fact, they've done some work on that hydrant that's right next to his house. So right at the corner there. So I've checked into that. But yeah, I know he'll check into it as well. So.
Great, thank you. Hi there, thanks for coming forward. Tell us who you are and where you live. Turn on the microphone first, though. Perfect.
My name is Ariana Kingston. I live at 128 South Path. I am at the top of the hill. I have big time water pressure issues. And I have big flooding issues too, because the city has made decisions about the storm drain and done projects on it without actually talking to residents to find out how the water behaves up there. So I completely understand the concerns and problems of the house next to this property, because I have the same problems, lots of damage to my property every year. And I've been in communication, and I think there is a project planned up at the top of South Path to address some of my concerns. But anyway, I just wanted to also state that I am concerned about the change to the area as far as appearance and how it blends in with the character of the neighborhood. I was blessed in 1994 to be brought to my house, and I've lived there for 32 years now. I know that this property used to be a part of the 110 South Path plat, owned by the same person that owned that house. And it seems that, you know, there is a reason why there is not a house built on that property yet. And that's because there have been concerns in the past about water issues, how a build would affect people, neighbors up the hill. There were those concerns in the past, and that's why there is not a house on this property yet. My understanding was that it was zoned and approved for building a structure. You can build a structure on it, but you can't have a livable unit that needs water because you can't tap into the city water line. That was my understanding of why no one ever bought and built on this property, and why it was separated from the 110 South Path property and sold as a separate sublot or a separate property, because people would buy it, they wanted to build, they couldn't. They would say, okay, well, this doesn't work, sell it, move on with life. So, you know, I'm also we're a pretty close bunch of neighbors up there. We help each other out. We look out for each other. We welcome new neighbors, but we also have problems that we don't feel like are adequately being addressed, you know, when they're brought up to city attention. And so there's some delicate water lines up there, clay pipes. Residents are being told to replace their galvanized steel water pipes, and now we're going to have more water pressure problems if this gets approved to be attached into our water line. So that's all. Well, I think that the best approach to historic preservation is to not fill in every square foot of land in Manitou with a new build. That would be my hope and dream. So I want to welcome new neighbors, but I also love my neighborhood, and I love this little piece of land that doesn't have anything on it, and it's just natural. I wish it could stay that way, but I respect the rights of people who buy the property, and you know, but I still want to have a say too in my concerns up the hill. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope that, although this is outside of our purview, these comments about the adding another house to your street, that you will pursue communicating with city, and it sounds like you already have, but that would be your recourse to have a conversation with it about somebody who can address your issues. Anybody else have comments? Oh,
No, I just want to say for the record, Joy Porter has been zoomed in. We just did not add her as a participant, but she's been listening to this whole hearing at this time. Joy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
yes, we
Oh,
can.
good. I apologize.
Joy.
I've been trying
Welcome, Joy.
since to get on, so. Thank you.
For the record, that's Commissioner Porter joining the meeting.
Yes.
Commissioner Porter, did you have any comments on this case?
No, I know water issues are always a concern. We have some, and it's good that the city finds out that there's some problems up there. More than they thought, maybe.
Right. Okay, then that may wrap up our public comment. So I'll close the public comment. Commissioners, let's have some conversation about this and see where we go.
Could we see the elevations again? Can we put the elevations up there?
I can zoom into a certain elevation if you need.
So I just had one question. So the sides are stucco?
So everything will be stucco except for that second story porch area
Okay.
here on the front.
So I've got, and maybe this is a little off topic, but I think, Zach, it would be really helpful if you would describe what happens with planning commission. Because I think a lot of the issues, I don't know if this is a minor or major, whatever it is, but I think it would be good, because I always forget as well, if you could give us and the folks that have spoken here some perspective about what gets addressed at planning commission.
Sure. So for this particular application, it is only going to be observed by the Historic Preservation Commission, and everything else is going to be handled administratively. The minor site plan, the grading and erosion control permit will all be determined administratively. And once those determinations are rendered, anyone can appeal our determination. If we do approve these plans, anyone's free to appeal them within 10 days. And if they call our mainline number, we can walk anyone through that process if they'd like. But other than that, that's pretty much it for something like this. We do have development plan review meetings where we discuss new residential. And in those meetings, you have the entire planning department and a representative from each public works entity, whether that's water, sewer, and the city engineer as well. And when they do their tap fees, a lot of that's handled through Public Works, and they will pay those fees through finance.
That actually surprises me, but so it's all administrative. You will deal with any issues with erosion, drainage, like you say, the Public Works issues about water availability, water pressures. That's all you guys?
Well, we don't review any of our grading and erosion control permits. They're reviewed by an outside engineering firm. And they review them, provide comments, and we supply those comments to the applicants for any changes that need to be made. And we also submit these to our city engineer for a secondary review as well. I'd like us to talk about the design a little bit. I had as I was reviewing this and looking at the drawings, it does seem that there's a whole lot of face of the structure that doesn't have a lot of ornamentation. And I'm not talking filigree or anything like that, but it is pretty flat stucco on three sides. And given the street, the homes in the district are all very different textures, but this one, it seems like it could fit in a little better if it had a little more texture to it. And part of our purview is design compatibility. So, and that might also, as the applicant said, it's a box, it's a rectangular house. So, and without not a lot of variation in form. So that would help to sort of minimize that or just give it some more visual texture. I don't know if anybody has thought of the same thing as I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was even thinking just breaking it up a little bit, like on one or two walls or part of the wall, like second floor up, doing like wood siding or anything different like that to break up the facades of it. Because along the street, like I know in the neighborhood there are some stucco houses, but the immediate houses around it are all wood. So it would definitely look it would stand out for sure. And I feel like there maybe could be more windows, or variation in windows to break up the elevations that are more solid stucco could benefit as well. But I haven't looked much at the floor plan, if that would make any sense at all.
Commissioner Porter has her hand up.
I
Mr.
just
Ford?
on the stucco, when it isn't broken up like that, it's going to look mammoth when you add more height to it. When 25 feet is generally what's used, and then expanding it up to 26. I'm not seeing that to help the way the stucco face is going to look. It seems like the houses close by are not stucco, and it just seems to be, it's going to stick out a lot in that area. Thank you.
Any other comments? I suppose we could ask to take another run at it, you know, design wise, as far as treating the facades of the building. I think that might mitigate the height issue. Does anyone want to have other comments or put a motion forward? No? No motions? Then,
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
And I'll make a few comments. I actually think, and I didn't go up because we've kind of stopped the issue of actually visiting the sites because it's been suggested that that was not appropriate. So I did not walk South Pat. My recollection is there are very different styles and finishes of houses on South Pat. Occasionally in the staff report, you will deal with that. Do you know? Could you report to us the styles and construction materials of the nearby houses?
I don't think it was noted the materials. I do know it was noted that it is a variation of single story and second story housing. So the sizing isn't necessarily an outlier, and its position is pretty far set back from the street, 31 feet where 15 feet were required, which was the typical configuration as well. So it aligns well with all the other houses. As for stucco, that would be a bit of an outlier. I don't think that necessarily means that it can exist. Then you run into what the guidelines call the Disneyland effect, where it looks kind of too historic in like a fake way. And that's not me making a decision. But the only element I think that looks like it stands out, it would be the stucco in terms of every other house on that street.
And I tend to just look at Google Maps and like the street view, because then you can look at all of them. And it's just this stretch of street that doesn't have much stucco, and the Mac on the main street does have stucco, but that's about the only one close here. And I think a little bit of stucco would be nice, but maybe, like Matt said, just breaking it up a little would be beneficial to the layout of it.
Yeah, I've also been looking at it on like Google Street View. Pretty much every house on this stretch is wood siding. I have some friends nearby that they're stucco, but they're the only ones on the street, and it's just stucco. It's not a mix of both. Yeah, but that's one out of, I don't know, 25 houses I've looked at.
Would anyone have thoughts of just putting lap siding on the front, since it is set back and our town is concerned about fire mitigation? with that large of a setback, I think the stucco is okay on the sides.
I think that's a good point. There is some ornamentation on the front with the shingles on the top, so I think they made an effort to do that. I don't know. I mean, I think the fire issue is a really important one. There are homes, not necessarily on that street, on that part of the street, but close by in the district that are stucco, so I don't know. Let's have, do we want to make a motion and, or to ask for something from this applicant, or do we want to postpone it? I mean, we have some, we can have it come back next week or next meeting for another discussion. Does anybody have thoughts about that?
I mean, design wise, how far do you think we are from approval, I guess? Like, is the only issue the stucco siding at the moment, I guess?
It sounds like that's the issue.
Yeah. Because then we've also got to approve the
The height increase.
1 foot and 4 inches.
Right.
Commissioner Porter has her hand up again.
Commissioner Porter?
I just had a question on the stucco. If 1 in 25 homes are not stucco, it seems like we're doing a disservice to the neighborhood, and putting some kind of cladding on it seems like it could be a compromise of some kind. I don't know if the applicant can speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Porter. Would you like to comment on that, the applicant?
I'm not sure I heard her question, or what would you like me to
Um,
comment on?
Commissioner Porter, would you like to repeat that?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I just wondered, would it be a hardship or to put a different front on rather than the stucco, to do a cladding of some kind, so from the road it looks wood rather than just stucco?
Yeah, we could do the front, lap siding, batten board, whatever. We'd be willing to do that. We'd definitely be willing to do something like that as opposed to postpone it for another month. It just costs to carry stuff is, times. So yeah, we're willing to do that.
And I was just gonna say, we shopped for insurance, homeowners insurance in May, and it was a huge issue for us to have siding. There was a lot of mitigation that had to take place, so that was one of the drives for us to do stucco. And that neighborhood does have a lot of wood, and this was our idea of trying to at least mitigate the fire danger in that neighborhood.
Would hardy board be an option that would be acceptable to your insurance?
It's acceptable insurance. It's 3 times the cost of wood, but yeah. But yeah, we've done it. We've used it before. Yeah. Just a cement siding. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a cement board siding would be the solution for that, whether it's hardy board brand or something else, but there are several cement board siding
Yeah.
manufacturers. And that would help with the fire mitigation.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we can move forward, perhaps at this meeting with, the applicant has just said that they would do some sort of lap siding. Does anyone want to formulate a motion that would incorporate that?
Sure. I would like to approve the material change of appearance certification at 112 South Path based upon the findings that the request meeting the review criteria for granting a material change of appearance certification as set forth in City Code Section 1704050B5 with conditions that you would do a lap siding on the front of the house.
Is the material their choice? So just lap siding and not a hard constraint on material, correct?
I would say with the cement board.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Do we have a second? Thank you. No, I meant to say we have a second.
Oh.
All in favor for approving this?
Aye.
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 All right, we have a unanimous approval. Time is 6:27.
Can we also, I'm sorry to interrupt, can we get a motion on the height relief as well?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion on the height variance?
Is that a second motion or an addition to the original? Motion?
It's a second. They're two separate
Oh, okay.
requests.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, 1.4 feet doesn't seem like too much to me. We're allowed up to 5 extra feet. I will move to approve MCAC 2613, height up increase of 1 foot 4 inches.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I would say no.
Okay. For the height variance, we have.
Yes, yeah, for the height variance, I would not agree to it.
Yes, so we have 6 in favor and 1 against. So that motion then carries. So that would wrap us up for MCAC 2613. We'll close the hearing on that. Thank you.
Hey, sorry, just to interrupt really quick. Can we just state the time one more time when we close the public hearing, please?
Yep, it is 6:29 PM on the 5th of August. And the hearing's closed. We have our next MCAC, and that is MCAC 2614, 809 Midland. It's an accessory structure after the fact. Is there any commissioners that have conflict of interest or ex parte communication on this?
Yeah.
If we have a quorum, I might sit this one out just because it's my friend's house.
Okay. That is Commissioner Hanlon recusing herself from this one. Okay, staff, could we please hear a report on that?
Yes. MCAC 2614, applicant is Andrew Gledzik. He is here with us today. And then we also have the property owner, Teresa. She's online, and I'm going to promote her now just so she's ready for comment if she wants to make any. This is an after the fact review. The structure is partially built. We are looking to get approval as it sits and also for the unfinished portions as well. Here is an overview of the property in question. The structure is located here to the rear of the property, visible from Shoshone Place. It is in the Midland Historic District and it is zoned general residential. The proposal is to construct an accessory structure, the carport, to the rear of the property. It is partially built, as previously stated, and approval is required for work to continue. It is approximately 480 square feet. It is 11 feet 6 inches on its highest side and 10 feet on its lowest. We're also seeking side setback relief down to 5, which is the most that the historic preservation can provide. Here are pictures of the current conditions. We have a view from 815 Minden, that is the neighboring property, and then the view from Shoshone Place. Here are some more proposed conditions. These are some of the stonework that they plan to incorporate into the property. I do want to state that the structure as it is, it's going to remain an open air structure. There will be a corrugated roof, and I have some pictures of inspiration to that. And it's meant to, the design is meant to kind of not block out any portion, and it can be seen through completely. Here are some other proposed elements of inspiration, the corrugated roof. These are all pulled from neighboring properties or other properties located here in Manitou Springs. And here is just a picture of the site plan itself. It is kind of hard to see, but it doesn't look very different than the overview that we showed in the first picture. And that is it for this one. This concludes my presentation. I do have both motion languages broken up into 2 as well, one for the structure itself and one for the side setback relief. I will state that as of now, there are concerns that the structure does sit pretty close to the property line. So the side setback relief gives them a little bit of leeway. But if it is determined after minor site plan review at the planning department that it does sit too close, the only remedy would be, well, there would be 2 remedies, either to shorten the structure near the property line or to seek a variance. But this concludes my presentation. The motion language is as follows for the structure and the side setback relief. Should the Historic Preservation Commission find it appropriate to grant the material change of appearance certificate, staff recommends no conditions. You can approve with conditions, deny, or postpone until September 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions for staff?
In the design inspiration photos, there's some stone walls. So I may have missed that, but is that planning on being incorporated?
Incorporated into the interior portion as it is, but there's a retaining wall on this part of the property.
Okay. So that's going to be stone face instead.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
but the front and the sides will be open. And I'll go back one more slide so we can see here. This is, you can see from 815, the retaining wall there that separates the 2 properties. That's where the stonework was at, there on the interior. And then from the view from Shoshone Place, open there on the front and the side.
Okay, so 2 sides are going to have stone face.
It'll just be the one, and we can get clarification from Andrew as well if I'm misrepresenting this in any way. But what was provided was that it would be there on the retaining wall, and where my mouse is here, just this interior rear portion of the structure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
And I had a question.
Commissioner Porter?
Yes. Fred, was there a building permit, not the historic stuff, but a building permit issued for the building? Or is one needed before someone builds like that?
Yes, the building permit is going to be required for this kind of structure.
And is there one now for the partial structure?
No, and it did receive a stop work order during the time that it was being built, and no movement has been made on this. It's taken a little bit of time, a couple reasons. The property owner was under the impression that the property was removed from the historic district, and I did include this administrative decision in the packet We did a little bit of research, and after discussing this internally and with the city attorney, came to the conclusion that it was still a part of the historic district and that it would need MCAC approval. This originally started around October of 2025, and has taken this time for us to kind of get to that point. But it would still need a property improvement permit and a minor site plan, which the property owner and the applicant are aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Zach, I'm looking at the site plan that was in the packet. It looks like the distance dimensioned here to the property line is 8 feet on the side setback.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this isn't a survey. This is so it's not an accurate representation of the property itself. And I can bring up something that we've kind of done as like a cursory review that brought us to this decision, and I can have that up before the board makes their decision.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for staff? Okay, looks like we have the applicant in person and online, correct? Could we have the applicants tell us who you are and what your address is?
Thanks for getting me in on this August meeting. First of all, appreciate your time. I'm Andrew Kledzik. I'm the son of the property owner performing the work. Yeah, just to fire off some answers to the first preliminary questions, one being the stone siding. I have a bunch of that rock that was shown in the picture. It's kind of like a pink sandstone rock. My plan was to use that to put a facade on the retaining wall that we put in. The other two retaining walls were already existing. So I was going to cover that up. And then with any remaining stone, I was planning on doing a facade around the pillars themselves. There's been a little back and forth on that. My parents like that it's visually not very impacting without any stone. So the stone would add more visual impact. They kind of like it just being clear. So we have some flexibility on that, but I kind of want to do it just for the structural integrity. And if there's a lot of cars that turn around, it's a dead end road there on Shoshone. And, you know, at least that first pillar, it would be nice to have a little bit of sustenance behind it in case somebody accidentally bumps into it or something like that. And then as far as the permit goes, as far as I understand it, it's already been basically approved with regional. I started a permit application there. They have everything they have. The structural design has been stamped and approved by the engineers. They just are waiting on Manitou's final approval before they can commit to issuing the permit itself. So, yeah. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Nope, I guess not. All right. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
actually, so you mentioned putting the stone around the pillars. Would that go all the way to the top, or would it just go to I guess where the second pillar starts?
Kind of depends on how much stone I end up having.
Gotcha.
And most likely it would not go all the way to the top. It would
Okay.
just be kind of a halfway sort
Okay.
of situation.
I think that would look nice. I think that the stone is a good look.
Cool. Yeah, it doesn't match the house exactly, but you can't really get that kind of stone anymore. So it's pretty close to a lot of the different stone used in Manitou. And I chose these particular materials mostly to create the least visual impact as possible. and also to be completely out of fire resistant material. So there's no wood. It's going to be all fire resistant. So standing seam, metal roof, and yeah.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, I guess no more questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Did we also have somebody online?
No, oh, well, we have your mom online.
Yeah,
Did she want to speak?
she-
Oh, she just
Yeah.
participating. Okay. I did bring up this, review here. This is the site plan, on top of the parcel and imagery data that we have. The 8 foot lines up with their box, but the structure itself sits roughly 2 feet. Of course, this isn't a survey. These are just really kind of rudimentary reviews that we do that tell us whether we should require a survey to determine the actual setback. So there's a little deviation from the submitted plan versus kind of what we're seeing when we do our reviews internally that throw up a few flags that we want to evaluate after approval, or at least historic preservation approval.
So we have two things to review and comment on, right? I have a question about the setback itself. So in this location, on the other side of the property line is another garage. Yeah, there's,
Over here.
yeah. So we don't know how close that one is to the property line either. So as far as, and I'm not trying to play fast and loose with setbacks here, but in the context of it, it's not, it doesn't appear to be intruding on a neighbor's home. It's more on at the back of the lot. So if we're going to consider whether
Get
we
up there, go ahead.
go so far as to
Get on the
say
bed, get.
we would think that the 2 foot setback is going to be okay, I think we should take that into consideration, like what's on the other side of the property.
Yeah, and the 2 foot setback wouldn't be okay. The relief would bring it down to 5, and that would give them a little more leeway and a remedy to adjusting the setback if need be. If the survey came back and it showed that it was actually 5 feet, then they would be set after side setback relief approval. If not, and they do need to adjust the structure, it also means that it's less adjustments that they would need to make. If it truly is 2 or 3 feet back and they need to find 2 feet, oh, that's a lot easier than finding the 4.5 feet. And of course, we'll have to evaluate this after. So the side setback relief is more of a helping hand and gives them a little more room to breathe.
About that, I guess the neighbors were all made aware of this as well too, right? Nobody raised any alarms.
Well, they were made aware through postcards and the property poster, so they would be aware of whether they took the action to look into it is a different story, but they were made aware, at least how we're required to make them aware.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody's come forward and made an issue. So.
No, yeah, we've had nobody come forward in regards to this particular application.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for the applicant? I think we said no. Then we could open the public comment, but I don't know that we have any. We just addressed that. So we can close that part of the hearing. Is there any deliberation we want to make amongst ourselves, commissioners?
The comment I make, because I see this when I walk up to my cabin, I think it's important to let them finish. It's been in this state of sort of half done for quite a while. So I am fully in favor of the application, MCAC 2614, and I would move approval as proposed.
And I have a comment too.
Commissioner Porter?
It just seems, I usually don't like to change different setbacks after something is built. But I also feel after reading what you wrote, Fred, there's a lot of confusion about whether it was in the historic or whether it was out. And I don't think this applicant was, I think they were doing it in good faith. I don't think they were trying to skirt the HPC rules on this one. On others, of course, we've had different situations, but I would agree with Ann on that. Thank you.
Is that a second, Commissioner Porter?
Yes, that'll be a second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we unanimously approve the part where we move forward with construction. And so we also need to have a motion about the setback if we're going to approve the reducing the setback to 5 feet.
And I would make that motion as well to approve the setback relief.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Unanimously approved as well. So it is 6:47 PM. And we have approved, I'm looking for it, sorry. MCAC 2614, there it is right there. So then we are closing that portion of the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, those are our two MCACs that we have tonight. Looking for my agenda here. I think our next, thanks. I left my printed one home, so I'm relying on my computer. Thank you. Okay, so next order of business here is public outreach efforts, which is up on the screen. This is something that I brought up last meeting and we didn't have everyone here, so we sort of pushed it onto this meeting. I put together a little presentation for everybody. One thing we've been talking about since I joined the commission a year ago, a year and a half ago, is public outreach and getting not just being a body for review of applications, but for actually doing some promoting of our historic districts, community involvement, community awareness, things like that. So we've talked about it a bunch of times. We've done a couple things, but we haven't really had a concerted effort to move forward and track and getting everybody sort of to say, yep, let's do it and sort of make some commitments. So I'm kind of asking for that tonight from you guys on the commission. So I just put this together. I'm happy to share. It didn't get into the packet, but I did get it to Chelsea early enough to get it up here on the screen. So the idea here is, I'm just calling this our outreach agenda. If we can move to the next page. I've been doing some research, and one of the things at the end of last year or the beginning of this, Chelsea showed us a whole packet that included our powers and duties and our responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. And this was really important to me. I won't be able to read. Oh, I can read the screen. So this is actually taken word for word from our powers and duties. The first one there is sort of an all-encompassing statement to take steps to encourage or bring about preservation of resources. I do have this on my computer. Yeah, I'll bring it up on my computer. You see that?
Yeah.
So what this means, it means the HPC is directed to actively promote, protect, and facilitate the care of local historical assets and structures rather than only act as a reactive regulatory body. And it's something that I've noticed over the last few months. It's become important to me that the community knows that we're here doing that instead of just judging the projects that they want to do to make their homes better. So the next things that are on this list are also from the powers and duties in the municipal code. Implement public awareness and incentive programs to promote historic preservation. Participate in, promote, and conduct public information, educational, and interpretive programs pertaining to resources. Promote the preservation and historic character of resources in historic districts. And this last one I was surprised about. Render advice and guidance upon the request of a homeowner or occupant on new construction or restoration, alteration, landscaping, or maintenance of any property, either outside the historic district boundaries or within the withdrawn from participation in the historic district. When I tried to read more about that, it really was, it hinges on being requested by the homeowner or resident. So if the homeowner or resident is wanting to know some things about it, then we are able and even obligated to give some counsel on that based on our experience and expertise. So nobody would even know to come ask us if they weren't in the historic district, because they think that we're just here to do things within the historic district, and we're not really out there in the community getting involved. So we could fulfill that part too, even if it's not in the historic district. Anyway, I just wanted to bring those things because they sort of help me generate some ideas. So the idea is we've talked about this before. We've done articles to inform residents about the HPC. Our first article in the city news was telling everybody what we do and who we are. The posts, we've done a few posts. Mostly it was posts surrounding the awards the award ceremony, and
Get up on the couch.
and we ended up having just a few responses to our treasures hunt. And then education, we've talked about doing education for realtors and their buyers about owning in a historic district, or buying and owning, which is an important one, and we haven't really gotten there. So I think we should do more. So the next slide, how we get there. So the two main things that are going to drive us there is public education and awareness, and incentives and guidance. With public education and awareness, we can create programs that teach the community and property owners about the value of local history and proper maintenance techniques. Under incentives and guidance, we can implement practical resources to help owners repair rather than replace historical materials like original windows and facades. I think we can also add to the incentives part of that even though the grant that we've been able to offer isn't funded right now, it will be again at some point. But also there's state options and national options for people, so we could become a resource for that. Am I sitting too far back? So what I would like to see happen, one of the things that happens is we talk about it at our meetings and then we don't meet again for another month. So things have to happen in between, and we are restricted from gathering and meeting on things and working on things in between meetings if there are more than 2 people. So we can make task assignments basically. So I've divided this into 3 tasks. There's 7 of us. I would stay out of doing that. I could sort of work on some other things, but if we can get six commissioners, which would the remaining commissioners, to sign up for one of these, then we could actually in between, some progress could be made, and then you can come and report back at the next meeting. Even, maybe this first round is going to be strategizing and gathering information, and then after that, there's going to be implementation. So The first one will be posts. So maybe two commissioners would take on social media posts. And we've talked before about that's about grants. It's about, windows. It's about seasonal changes, upcoming events, all sorts of things that a short post would be good for. And we have the city's Facebook and Instagram that we can use for that. Nobody knows to look for us there. So, once we start posting, word will get out. And then articles. So this is more long form, right? So this is for the city news and the Pikes Peak Bulletin, both are online. We can submit articles to the bulletin. I would think that they might pick them up as a public interest. And the city news, I think, would be willing to do it too. And those articles could be, longer instructional things or maybe one of them is about how do you apply for a grant? I was going to say on posts, one of the things that might be a nice recurring regular thing is to feature each historic district in turn. We have 16, so that'll take up a good amount of real estate on posts. And then the third thing here is engagement. So community relations and educational programs. That would be another two commissioners to sort of strategize for that and make plans that we could all, if it's an event and we all show up, we have to make it a public announced event, I think. But it would be a good thing to do. I mean, even if we were to, I don't know, have a table at the farmer's market where we're having some pamphlets or brochures or just some information. We can't really talk about cases there, but it could just be information about resources and things like that. And then educational programs. We even talked when we were getting ready for the awards and trying to get artists to submit things. We talked about maybe, it would be nice if the school, we could get involved with the school and educating some of the students about what it means the Manitou historic districts mean. I think that we could turn it around from being drudgery to have to come and talk to us to actually get some community pride in. There already is. I know there is. I don't mean to say there's not, but have everybody, pretty psyched about what we have here because it's pretty special. So this is what I put together. I'm hoping that we can, if you guys are interested in pursuing this, we can move forward with these. I would love that. And I think it would help with the community. Commissioner Khan.
Yeah, I'm just thinking this through as you're saying it, so it's not fully baked, but what about, I already have a couple of ideas, but they kind of intersect amongst these categories. So for example, this is modified from something I did with students years ago, but interviewing a house or a structure or the land, like what is this scar from? Are there initials carved in? Like something in a historic district, interviewing maybe the homeowner, but it's really an interview with the home. And maybe that's a series that we do. And maybe it's under the umbrella of we're featuring this historic district right now. And so we talk to a couple of homeowners and get this story about, what is this? What are the ghosts of this house essentially? But in thinking of the way that you've structured this, I could see that being a three-pronged effect of like, that's a series on our social media. It's part of our community outreach and education program. And it's also maybe feeds into an article that so is there kind of thoughts, and again, like I said, this is not fully baked, but just thinking it through, is there a way that we strategize how to, yes, two of us on each of these, in each of these categories, but how we're going to intersect and maybe support it? Honestly, all sounds like a social media campaign under the umbrella of something like a themed, not to say it's all social media and that's the importance of it, but like, it seems like that would be a three-pronged effect. And we would use social media and maybe articles for both of those things to support community education.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Totally. And I think the way we support each other is that monthly, when we come back to our meetings, we can have a discussion where we all talk about things and strategize what to do next.
Cool.
Because we can't do that in between
Yeah.
the meetings.
So if in my example that I just gave, let's say I'm like, oh, I want to interview homeowners, and that's the community outreach, and community relations and educational programs. And then maybe the task force who does social media works with me to then publish that on social media or in an article, or I'm just trying to understand how we would,
Can you say that again? Sorry.
like, let's say I'm like, I want to volunteer for the community engagement, community relations, educational programs. And so I want to, you know, go interview these homeowners and ask them about all the scars of their house or the land, whatever it is. And then somebody on the social media committee or whatever we'll call it, like that next circle, they would then work with me to publish that, or like that comes off my plate and goes to theirs. Is this like a progression, or is it more, we haven't really thought it
I
that far down the line?
haven't thought that
Okay,
far
so-
through yet, but thank you for thinking that far.
Okay.
I
No.
think,
No. No,
I don't think that,
no. No, right now. Come on,
sure. I mean, I think
Come
that
on.
we,
don't you
Commissioner,
work.
could you mute?
Yeah, I'm going to try to mute when he jumped down.
Is it a cat or a dog? Do you know?
That's
Uh,
it's my sister's dog. So I'm going to try to mute.
No, it's okay. We're okay.
Well,
It's
if he gets barking, I don't want to interrupt us.
Okay.
He's just obnoxious at times. I love him.
We're happy to have him here.
Cat would-
Yeah.
I think that, so I thought about that too, like how the different groups interact, and I think, I'm not sure. I mean, I do think that at our meetings, we can strategize that, where we can all talk about it and then, you know, go forth and see what happens. But if that's part of the community engagement, I mean, in a way that seems more like I don't know. I mean, I think it's all going to overlap.
Yeah, because I think there should be a cohesive strategy. If
Yeah.
all three of these circles that I'm not going to turn around and read again, sorry. If they're
Sorry, I
all
didn't
doing
send out
different, different things, I don't know that we have the impact without a cohesive strategy. Like we all decide our article, our social media post, and our community education this month or this 6 months is this strategy. I think that's what I'm coming back to, because I love the idea of these different task forces. I just think there needs to be, like, we decide on a cohesive strategy or a theme, and then we all have our duties to implement that theme. But I'm
Yeah.
also maybe getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. I guess the only thing is we would have to wait every month until we all meet together again, right? And the only way around that is if, like, in order for all 7 of us to discuss together, is we would have to put out a notification and, you know, record it and make it available to everybody, right? If we were to meet outside.
Right. If all 7 of us are meeting,
Mhm.
we would have to do that, and we'd have to have staff involved in that.
Okay.
But for 2 of us through the month, that's fine.
Mhm.
You know, so that's kind of the only way that we can develop it.
And even like emails, we
Right.
can't all be on the same emails.
No.
There's got to be staff.
Right.
And even
Being
further,
really
it can't be an email from group 1 through one person to one person in
You
group
can't.
2. You can't like hop,
can't have the
leapfrog
meetings
it like
on
that.
the same
But what you can do is you can email staff and have staff distribute it
Oh.
as appropriate.
Oh, that'd be great.
So I think the first step is to come up with a strategy, and you can do that through a work session, where it'll be in this setting, but maybe, you know, rearrange the chairs. And, so you can have a work session, kind of come up with your strategy, and then figure out where those, kind of those meeting points are, and then we can figure out how staff fits in to help make that legal.
And we can probably do a lot of async work once we have the initial like strategy planning session, because then we all go off and do our thing with our person. So I think that's a great suggestion.
So I've got kind of a basic question here, because we're not talking about any application that's been presented to us. So it seems to me like you're taking a really hard line that when we're coming up with just how to publicize what we do and get people interested in what we do, that's constrained by public meeting laws. That seems to me like completely outside where I would say we should be going. I mean,
So-
I think that's a really, really restrictive assessment of public meeting laws.
We can absolutely ask the attorney.
I
We can
think we
also
should
read
have-
the ordinance.
Yeah.
I've always been taught that if it's within the scope of the business of the board, that it should be open meeting. And this isn't necessarily something to restrict you all, but really to include the community. This is a transparency-based law. So
Mm.
that's kind of always been my approach.
So, and-
But we
and-
can absolutely look into.
Have we asked?
We
the
did
attorney?
get the attorney's opinion on on the subcommittees, correct?
But, and
think-
I would like to just say something. I'm sort of following Anne's strand here. But for example, I can't engage or I can't meet for sessions. I'm just unable to do that. So it would, as much as if you all decided that this is the way you're going, I wouldn't be able to go speak to people for a different reason, but or walk around or do those kinds of things. So maybe there'd be a way to combine, have a person go to both groups to get your two in each group, but I would not be able to do that, not because I don't like it, but because I just can't. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. And I think that it's important, to be aware of that, but I don't see that as a hindrance. I think that whichever team you wanted to be on, you would be a valuable counsel and inspiration and have some ideas to put forward. And then the other person can go out and do the footwork. I don't think anybody on the commission would be resentful of that at all. I think that we would appreciate your participation.
I also think the first two circles seem pretty accessible.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't need to go out and, sorry, I'm looking this way, but.
Well, and I don't want to go into detail of why that won't be happening, but I think I have to respect the situation I'm in. So we can see as it develops, but I couldn't commit to something tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if we need to commit tonight to something. This is really for discussion. And what I kept thinking until recently that work sessions, like we had to schedule a work session in between our meeting. And actually, this is a discussion almost like a work session. So our work sessions can be after our regular business meeting on this night. So yeah, if we can find out if we have some leeway for discussions of planning these things, that would be great.
So I think our attorney is still on the line, and Attorney Zach, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the objective, what we have to do is comply with the open meetings law and the sunshine law. And so it doesn't matter what the agenda items are, but if a quorum of the commission is getting together, you have to publish the agenda. It doesn't matter what's on the agenda. The point is you're convening as a commission, and that has to be that has to be published and open to the public.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. And even more so from what I'm hearing, you're trying here to comply with the historic district design guidelines. And those were the objectives of the guidelines, were to, have community outreach and things like that. So even more so, this does actually sound like you're within the scope of what this this board is for. So yeah, definitely it would be much safer to not work in groups of more than two.
I think it's really doable, especially if we have the strategy meeting first and then we all have async work to do over the course of a month and meet back at our regular meeting time. I just really like the plan. Shout out to you.
Good. I think that makes sense. So next meeting, next month would be our strategy session. And in between now and then, if everybody can be thinking about these things and come to the table with some discussion, I think that would be really helpful. I hate to put it off another month because it's summer and we have opportunities, but we will, if we get this going towards the end of the summer and into the fall, that gives us a great seasonal a whole bunch of seasonal things to talk about. So
Could I just shoot out a couple of ideas while they're top of mind? So I think it was last year, the city did a meet and greet here with like the fire department and different entities of the city. And I'm wondering why we weren't present with a booth. Because there was a raffle and lots of community members came. So we should be a part of that.
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, I can look into that.
Were there other, besides the fire department, were there other groups?
No, there was Public Works, the whole city
So
was
the
here.
city, the
Yeah.
city departments
The city
did it.
department.
So, yeah, I mean, so that's a kind of a difference. If there weren't other boards represented, but maybe there could have been.
We could do something
Right.
similar or be a part of that
Right.
and have something of value to offer. I do have a friend who is retired from the window business, and he said he would be more than happy to get an old window and show people how to glaze a window. If you wanted something live like that.
I was gonna say like material, not work sessions, but like show and tells would be really
Yeah.
cool, especially with the realtors and.
And then I know in the past we've talked about reaching out to realtors, which I think as a whole is probably a waste of time and resources. But I think there's 5,000 realtors in Colorado Springs. But I think if you notice a new listing in Manitou Springs, you could contact the realtor and provide them with a listing packet that they could put on the countertop at the listing, which would create more awareness for people looking at the house. And then the other thing would just be paying attention to new sales and sending a letter to the new homeowner anytime a house sells. Those are all my ideas.
So I want to follow up, Aaron, because I mentioned to Matt before that it would be nice to have a pamphlet that we could, like when she mentioned a home that's for sale, you'd have a pamphlet on the table in there. So like whenever I bought my house in Manitou, nobody mentioned historic preservation. The neighbor across the street who used to own it was like, I opted out of it. So you're not in a historic district. So like I didn't know any better. You really have to go to the city hall, or I had to go to the city hall and ask about it. So I don't know if it's, do we have a budget for pamphlets?
I think if the budget, because printing could cost $300 for pamphlets at a house. But if you just had one that stays at the house behind plastic, that was my thought.
So we would get like, I don't know, 10 to 15.
Yeah, just a point. So the Historic Preservation Commission, you do have a small budget. You have a budget for you to do what you want. And usually what we do is that budget is for training and for the awards ceremony, things like that. I think if you wanted to have some pamphlets printed, we could use that budget money as well if there is some available.
I think you could also look at using, or I guess not using, meeting with the PIO and the city's accessibility coordinator and getting, maybe a QR code for something that's hosted on the website other than a physical pamphlet. But I know a lot of folks have different feelings about that.
I think having both would be great. Because we're going to reach people who aren't necessarily looking online with a pamphlet and vice versa. And I think that we could, we can minimize the cost of printing of a pamphlet. It doesn't need to cost a lot of money. So we can find out what our budget is and see what we might be able to do with that. And it would be more general, if you're buying in this area, here's what to expect. And I think you are in a historic district.
I am, yeah.
Because when you bought the house, that negates the opt-out and put it in
Exactly,
your
yeah,
hand.
that's what I explained to him. After I went to City Hall
Yeah.
and got educated, I told him, when you sell the house, the new homeowner.
Right,
Everbirds, so.
right.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that's kind of the thing that I think we can just put out there. So that's great. I appreciate all the support and thinking. And I think it'll be really fun to do some more things. So let's plan on next meeting, having this on the agenda again, and Chelsea, could you email out that the deck that I sent you to everybody so that you all have that? Because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't in the packet. Since I can't email it to everybody. Okay, then we had creek wall. We can move on to the next thing if everybody's ready. Sorry, it's going long tonight, but update on the creek wall repair at 218 Ruxton.
Sorry, hi. So we wanted to give you all a quick update about a project that is currently happening on Ruxton Avenue. Yeah. Do you? Well, a very brief update. So the creek in the wall in the creek bed in front of 218 Ruxton Avenue has been altered. And so we wanted to just give you all a heads up that we are aware of it. They did come in and had a pre-application meeting. We informed them of the process, but they indicated at the time that the scope of the project was very, very small and did not meet the threshold for requiring an MCAC. The project that has actually happened is much exceeds that small scope. So we're working with them and with Public Works as well as the floodplain administrator, excuse me, and we're working with them to determine the appropriate course of action and to get a make sure that the creek will be unimpacted and that the work that needs to come see you will come see you.
Yeah.
Okay, so stay tuned is the update.
Thank you.
Quick question, is the work, because I saw it the other day, the work that's already has been done, is that going to come back out or what's that process?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was a huge surprise when I saw.
Yeah, that wasn't what was discussed during the pre-application meeting. So we wanted to bring it to you to let you know that we're aware of it. It's not something that we tried to skate past or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have more questions about that? Okay, then the next order of business is Chapter 17 code revision discussion.
Thank you. Just give me a second to get my other screen pulled up. Actually, before we get going, does anyone need a recess or do you want to just power through? Mhm. Okay.
So we recess for like 10 minutes.
So we'll be back at 7:30.
No.
Should we jump back in? It's
Yeah.
7:29.
Okay, so we're going to talk about more Chapter 17 amendments. Tonight, the topic du jour is the MCAC. In particular, we're talking about approval criteria for MCACs. What I heard from last month's meeting on the same topic, I heard that the HPC did not prefer to create an application type for administrative approval to capture work that is currently exempt from permitting. But you did seem interested, to my recollection, in having multiple application types for MCACs if there are reasons to distinguish between the two levels, as well as benefits to having two levels. Both HPC and the attorneys prefer to keep all decisions at the HPC level. So I've incorporated that feedback into this conversation. As a reminder, the MCAC is one of the types of applications that this body will hear. Future work sessions will be on other application types. So what are approval criteria? Approval criteria are standards that help the HPC evaluate proposed projects. They look for conformance with the code and design guidelines. Approval criteria should help the HPC make decisions objectively, as well as apply regulations consistently. In our current code, we have MCAC approval criteria under section 17.04.050B5. And it states that the commission shall approve the application only if it finds that either the proposed change is consistent with the design guidelines, or the denial of a proposed project would result in an economic hardship as set forth in section 17.04.090. Those don't really help us apply the design guidelines for any projects, do they? In fact, when you look at our design guidelines, there are design guidelines that may or may not apply to every single project that may, any given project may only meet one or two of them. And so we need to kind of understand what conformance with the guidelines looks like. I reviewed our code as well as the model code set forth, or not set forth, sorry, the model code provided by History Colorado, as well as Salida's code and Idaho Springs code. All of those other codes have different criteria for contributing as well as for non-contributing structures or properties. Salida also included demolition and relocation in their approval criteria, but that's a little bit oddly placed for how our code is set up. But I did think it was interesting that all three of those sources all have contributing and non-contributing. So as just a quick summary, they're all looking at their design guidelines. They're all looking, the model code and Salida are also looking at the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic places, which is something that we reference as well in our guidelines. The model code looks at compatibility with the property as well as compatibility with the district. Salida looks at, they have supplemental guidelines. They also have non-contributing standards. And Idaho Springs has criteria related to the historic quality, the historic atmosphere of the district. They also have supplemental guidelines and non-contributing standards. So, so when you look at those, all of those topics of criteria and compare them to ours, which look at, do they meet the design guidelines or do they present an economic hardship? I think we have some room to include more specific criteria.
Chelsea, I have a question.
Okay.
You have numbers in parentheses on some of those in the table.
Mhm.
Does that mean how many
Yes.
they have of each of those? Okay. That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, so some of these have, so Salida has 10 other criteria and Idaho Springs has 11.
Thank you.
Yes. So again, kind of taking a stab at this to get feedback. What I'm proposing is that we have kind of 3 sets of criteria. So the first being criteria for all projects, criteria for contributing MCACs, and and criteria for non-contributing MCACs, which would include infill or new construction, as well as alterations to non-contributing structures. And so my thought is that each project would have to meet, the criteria for all projects would be applied to all projects plus one of these other 2 categories. So in reading through the other sources, it looks like some good general criteria could be things like These four here, which are number one, compliance with the Manitou Springs Historic District Design Guidelines as applicable. Again, what we already have. Number two, Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties as applicable, which we only include currently by reference. So I think including those specifically could be helpful. I say helpful in kind of enhancing the clarity about what we're using to evaluate these projects. Number three, the condition of existing improvements and whether or not they're a hazard to public health and safety. Currently, that's evaluated under a different portion of our code, and it doesn't necessarily align with the MCAC process. And number four, whether the proposed work and materials are required or necessary to comply with a building, fire, or other health or safety code, or to mitigate a risk. Now, again, those are broad, they're vague. You may want to try to quantify some of them, but I do think that when I've looked at approval criteria for Planning Commission, for instance, they're able to really drill down into some specific thresholds. And everything I've researched for HPC criteria, they're all open to debate, but they are designed to steer the debate into kind of the meat of the application, I guess. So moving on from there, and we'll chat about all of these after. The proposed approval criteria for contributing projects. Number one, whether the work will protect or return the original historic appearance of a structure or site, especially where documented by photographs, historic research, or other credible evidence. Number two, whether and or to what extent the proposed work will require more than a minimal change to the historic appearance, materials, or integrity of the structure or site. And I will say I pulled that language from one of our other sources because that's a lot of maybes and ors. And number three, whether original designs, materials, finishes, and construction techniques that characterize the historic value and appearance of a structure or site can be retained, restored, or repaired as opposed to replaced, and whether replacement design, materials, or finishes can match or accurately replicate the originals. So what we're looking for there is, are they able to fix it? If they can't fix it and they're going to replace it, does the replacement match it or does it honor it, basically? A couple of non-contributing criteria. Number one, new structures and additions, exterior repairs or alterations of existing non-landmark and non-contributing structures shall be compatible with the historic architectural character, scale, shapes, sizes, heights, facades, and materials predominant in the district to the maximum extent feasible. And number two, whether and or to what extent the proposed work will enhance and advance the purposes of the district. It's a whole lot of words. It'll be a whole lot of conversation, but I pulled these from our references and looked at, the ones that kind of come up a lot in your conversations. So is there a lot of this material on the street? No? Okay. Are you able to put the exterior muntins on the window pane? Well, do they look like the other muntins? No, then do we really need them? Things like that, those sorts of conversations where, are we checking boxes? Are we creating the Disneyland effect? Or are we doing the best we can for this specific site in this specific district and this specific homeowner? Um, so, I think I'd like to maybe stop there and have a chat, if anyone has any thoughts.
I think you created an outline for our current, for have conversations about all of these things in a really articulate way. I think that the way you're breaking it up and separating it and proposing to reshape the criteria helps us think about things differently and ask questions more clearly. That's just my take on on how you're going through it. These are, I mean, this is the language that you're proposing, correct? To be in our
This is a starting point.
criteria, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the proposal for this for right now. Obviously, I'm not bringing a code amendment next month.
Right.
But yes, the idea with all of these kind of work sessions is that eventually it will lead to a code amendment. You guys will eventually get a red line. But if you have any particular additions or concerns or anything like that you'd like to email me afterwards, you're more than welcome to do so. I don't think we need to necessarily wordsmith these right now because they're not there, but I will definitely use your feedback from tonight to shape this.
Yeah, I guess I'm struggling with this a bit. I'm not sure these are approval criteria or they are considerations for looking at, I mean, for example, I don't think an approval criteria is the condition of existing improvements. I think an approval criteria would say something about you should approve it if, and maybe it's just verbiage, it's just the language. You should approve it if the change is required to fix a hazard to public health or something like that. I mean, this seems to me the way this is written, you're just giving us categories of considerations that should be taken into account when we look at proposed changes. But I don't think I'd call them approval criteria. I mean, clearly the approval criteria are compliance with the historic district guidelines and the Secretary of Interior standards. That's an approval criteria. The rest of them don't seem to me to be that. They seem to me to be areas that we should consider when we're trying to decide if, number one, they are in compliance with our design guidelines or the Secretary of Interior standards. So I'm struggling with, I guess, the concepts here.
How do you feel about having different sets of criteria for contributing versus non-contributing?
And I think that makes some sense, but again, I don't see these. Well, and under non-contributing, they are, I think, more criteria than they are under contributing.
Okay.
It seems to me. I'm just, yeah.
Yeah.
And it may take me more time to read this and kind of figure out. Do you have actual codes that you've looked at that have sort of this approach?
Kind of. I thought I uploaded some, but the issue is that no one's code is set up like ours.
Yeah. Okay.
And so finding these particular parts in other codes takes some digging,
Okay.
which is why I try to pull out the language that I think is something that we can use in our recipe, I guess.
Yeah. I'll just need more time to think. This
So
through, I
is
think.
your
Yeah.
point, and that rather than saying, making it consider this, maybe it should say it must meet
Must
these
do.
requirements or not,
Right. Right.
so somehow rephrasing some things to be less of a suggestion and more of a must do.
Right, that you would approve it if it.
And again,
protects,
that's
let's say.
tough
Yes.
HPC because historic preservation is an art and you're trying to find ways to apply government to art. And so even things like meets our guidelines. Well, sure, it meets 5 out of the 72.
Right, but this would be in the code. This isn't going to be a guideline. These are going to be code.
Right, but if our criteria is meets the guidelines, what
Right.
does that look like?
Yeah.
If
and
you
that-
want to get specific, I think we lose some flexibility in that approach.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to have to think about this a lot,
Okay.
I think.
Is anyone else before we move on?
I put my hand up. I
Oh,
can
sorry,
talk.
yeah.
It's okay. It was sort of momentarily. I'm agreeing with Ann. I would really need to think about some of these things and what it means. I'm not sure that separating non-contributing and contributing adds stuff, but I could see how the detail and non-contributing is that way. But there's a philosophy about historic guidelines, and it is an art. It is different than the planning commission and what they do. They have different kinds of things, and so I'm like Ann. I really have to look at this to see what we're trying to say. It's like Windows, which you're going to talk about. It's like we struggle with Windows forever, and we try our best, but at the same time, in historic buildings, sometimes there's some kind of quirk or some kind of thing. It just isn't going to work. And they're sort of stuck in between if we make it many things required. I like having detail, but having them required, it adds an onus to me for the HPC. It may not for the planning commission because they operate a little differently than we do. So
Right.
I'm like Ann, I'm looking at it. I haven't had a lot of time to digest it yet. Thank you.
So, and I do want to make a note that our design guidelines even have differences between contributing and non-contributing or infill development. There are different chapters for each of those that we refer to.
Yes.
And same with the Secretary of the Interior Standards.
I think that that's a really nice addition to have those 3 sets of criteria. But I think to Commissioner Porter's point, maybe it's not, like I was saying, like I said, it's must have this or must not. Maybe my first comment on these is it really gives us some language to articulate and to use our discretion as a board for approval or not. So I think maybe somewhere in between is the best place to be.
Sure, yeah, this is a first take.
Yeah.
This is absolutely meant to get some reactions. So, yeah, no, I appreciate all that feedback. So I think we'll kind of keep moving in this direction. But as I said, anyone's welcome to send me thoughts and red lines, emails, words you really have problems with, words you'd like to see us, or, a code from across the country somewhere that worked for you once. Happy to look at it all. So again, I guess in the interest of time, we'll just scoot right along and talk about window replacements. So as we talked about last month, there's a list of items. Again, this is summarized. A through G that are exempt from needing an MCAC. We had already talked about and tentatively agreed on including something for the Americans with Disabilities Act. That language has not been fleshed out yet. It's just the ghost, don't worry. But the thought would be potentially, absolutely at the HPC's discretion, to include something about window replacements, because we spend a lot of time as a board, you spend a lot of time as a board talking about window replacements. So the main question is, when is an MCAC needed for window replacements? Window replacements, for those who don't know, do not require building permits from PPRBD. So that leads to a lot of the time them being caught by nosy neighbors, people walking their dogs, or someone who stumbles in and says, hey, I need a property improvement permit for this window job. And we're like, you're in the you're in the historic district. So, and that's fine, you know, but the idea of kind of like catching these versus giving, maybe filtering the ones that really need to be caught. I think that's something that staff is interested in. And I don't know how the HPC feels, but maybe you would prefer to only look at the ones that are really needing to be looked at. Feedback from the community that we've received, requiring wood windows throughout the house makes the project too expensive. Requiring an MCAC to replace non-wood material, so existing aluminum or vinyl windows with vinyl, is frustrating and costly. And then also we've heard that requiring storm windows is not in code, which we agree with. So my question to you all is, are there circumstances in which HPC would support exempting certain window replacements from MCAC requirements? Thoughts?
The only thing I could think of is if the window's beyond repair, but that's something that you know, they submit the photos. How can we confirm that it's beyond repair? So that was the only thing I was thinking.
Okay, so I assume you're talking about an original wood window.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so if an original wood window is beyond repair, then what?
I guess then it would be exempt from HPC approval.
But who decides it's beyond repair?
That's exactly, I don't know.
Okay,
But, what they replace it with would fall under our purview.
Yeah.
Um,
But if they go wood for wood, then.
right.
so potentially in your purview, we actually have some language in code that says additions or alterations to non-contributing resources which increase the floor area by 25% or less will not result in the structure being visually or architecturally intrusive in a manner that detracts from the historic character of the historic preservation district, and which do not require development plan approval, rezoning, conditional use approval, a variance, or subdivision approval. This exemption language that currently exists in code could apply to some windows. Staff would like more specific direction from you all around window replacements, because we don't feel comfortable using this because it doesn't seem to be the will of the HPC. So potentially there could be a policy rather than code about this, but I do think that it would be helpful to narrow in on what exactly you want to regulate about windows.
Well,
have
go ahead.
these conversation starters only. Isn't it currently true that we only deal with windows that are visible from the public right of way? I mean, if somebody wants to replace a window on the back of the house, do we even get involved in that?
Sometimes.
Generally not, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think we do that. Last one we did, or a few times ago, the back windows were going to be different than the front windows. And I always really have to think about windows, because I think, you know, if you just start using administrative approval, there's some things about wood windows, whether they're can be repaired or not, or, you know, why do they need to do something where it becomes so different? How will it affect the appearance? And windows are really critical to the appearance of of buildings. And when people say they don't work and they let air in and they're expensive, I can see that. But I'm not sure we can come up with something that would make it so clear that we all understand it. I think we struggle with it because it's a hard subject. I don't know if that helps you.
But I do think this conversation starters is a framework that could work.
Yeah,
I really do, because I think we generally don't care and don't deal with it if it's not visible from the public right away.
that's true, and right.
Mostly- Mostly care if they're original wood. If
Mhm.
somebody replace a vinyl window, I don't think we care. So I
Mhm.
think that this is sort of a good construct to start with.
No, I think all we care about is if it's the original.
Yeah, I think
The city could go ahead and approve other replacements.
So if someone wanted to replace an original wood window with a wood window that replicated it, would you all want to see that?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think if we're gonna say original wood windows is the criteria, then, then we want to,
We wanna
yes.
see it, Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of misunderstanding from the general, this is from the general public. I mean, beyond- So I think when it comes to original wood windows, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding from the general public because they were really designed with the ability to be repaired. I mean, depending on how in-depth you want to go to repair it, no matter how rotted it is, you can repair it and replace the wood on it if you want to go that far. But I just think there's not enough education for homeowners. And they just see those windows and they think to replace it.
We've also heard from a lot of folks, and I have them in my house. No matter what you do, they're never going to live up to modern comfort standards.
No, you get back up there.
And I do understand that. I mean, if you reglaze them, you know, that can definitely help. And then I see on your list here requiring storm windows is not in code. And I don't think that should be required, but it could be, you know, as part of our goal to educate the public. It should be an option for us to suggest the wood storm windows because a lot of these historic houses don't have the wood storm windows existing. A lot of times, you know, when I'm showing houses, I'll see them stashed under a porch or in a shed, and they're not in good condition. But the house will still have the original hooks on the window for those storms. And most people I talk to, you know, they're walking in a historic neighborhood and I have to point out those hooks because they're not knowledgeable of what those are for. So anyways, I think all we really do care about is the replacement of the originals.
Yeah, and I also think, I mean, I've read this many places, that the notion that you lose a lot of heat through the windows in a well-insulated house is just not accurate. That windows are, if they're intact and don't have cracks, and that they are not the main source of heat loss in a house. So I think that's a fallacy that people use to try to, I'm sure window salesmen use that all the time to convince people they should replace their windows. And I think that's just not accurate. So I think we need to be fairly careful here. I mean, I don't think we would want to give up our oversight over window replacements. I do think it's currently restricted to windows that you can see from the public right of way. And it's currently mostly original wood windows that we're concerned with. If people have already replaced them with vinyl, who cares really? Unless they're changing the window size, which does change the look of the house. So I think this is a fairly important and complicated topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's half the work session.
Right.
So,
Right.
but that's great. I really appreciate everyone's feedback. I do think that you all have some good like Mythbuster article material there. And I think that just where staff is concerned, we've heard so much concern about windows that it's kind of bled into like, oh, we don't really need to bring it. Because it's like, well, it is visible from the right of way. Everything here is visible from a right of way or a trail, or there's a lot. You would be surprised. And so I think making the distinction is not visible from the adjacent right of way or trail. And then, yeah, if it's already aluminum or vinyl or another material, how would you feel about, just so I can flesh this out a little bit more, a wood window that's not original? So someone replaced them in the 80s. I don't know.
A wood window that's newer would be still a wood window. Yeah. So maybe our criteria isn't original wood windows.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree. I mean, wood windows fit the historical, look of Manitou, and that's what we're trying to preserve. So maybe we just remove original. It's wood, then we care.
Wood window, it'll come to you. Okay. It's very simple and very elegant. I think it's a great direction. Thank you for that clarity. I will move forward with kind of the feedback and await other feedback about the specific language. Just as a reminder, other areas that we were going to look at, I think now are pretty sufficient in our MCAC for right now until we get a red line. And I think looking next, maybe we wanted to look at demolitions. We were kind of looking at the things that we see most often. And I think the demolitions can come next month in a work session like this. Good. Fred suggests pairing demolition with economic hardship, and I think that's a good call. So we'll do that. Thanks everyone for your work. I appreciate you staying late to talk about all this.
Thank you, Chelsea. Okay, so we're ready to adjourn then.
8:04.
And the time is 8:04. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.